With us officially in between Smash games, there's been a lot of talk about what the next entry in the series could do whenever it ends up happening. Could it broaden the crossover factor even further? Dial things back and focus more on missing Nintendo characters? Take the series in a completely new direction? It's up in the air. But there's one thing I've seen suggested more often than nearly anything else: using the next Smash to overhaul the roster's oldest veterans using everything new they've picked up in the past 20 plus years. And one of the most brought up veterans is a certain bounty hunter whose moveset other than her final Smash hasn't been touched since Melee and is definitely showing its age. I've built a lot of Smash movesets before now, but redesigning someone who's already in Smash is a whole different beast. There's a delicate balance to maintain with choosing what to update, what to completely replace, and what to keep as is. Thread that needle just right, and we can bring Samus up to the standards of her series' recent renaissance while still feeling familiar enough to not alienate the players who already main her. Ready? Let's get moving. Let's begin with the most basic of basics, her appearance. Samus' Smash designs tend to take after her most recent outings. Smash 64 and Melee pulled from Super Metroid, Brawl used the Prime trilogy, and Smash 4 went with her suit design from Other M. Ultimate just kept the Other M design despite a more recent option existing. But we can get her back on track with a new design based on her default suit from Metroid Dread. The striking blue and white color scheme became a fan favorite practically overnight. But there are still fans of the classic Varia suit, and we can tap into that by devoting half her costumes to it. Link's revamp in Ultimate did something similar, splitting his alts between the new Champion's Tunic and old-school Tunic of the Wild. Samus could even use her Varia suit design from Metroid Prime 4, since it'll probably be out by the time the next Smash is a thing, unless I just jinxed it. We could combine these suits with a redone set of movement and attack animations, using Metroid Dread as a point of reference. Samus' current Smash animations are still derived from Super Metroid, and while they've held up decently well, a Dread elevated 2D Metroid movement to such a level that not tapping into it would be a missed opportunity. Why not update her Smash animations to match that captivating sense of smoothness and flow? We could also give her animations a new quirk. Anytime Samus jumps while in the middle of a full run, she goes into a mid-air somersault instead of her standard jump. Nothing changes statistically, but it's one more part of 2D Metroid that we can sneak in. Okay, it does let her do one other thing, but let's not spoil that just yet. Samus' alternate palettes have mostly stuck to referencing other suits she's had in her games. That's perfectly fine to keep around, but we do need to figure out how to split them between her two costumes. I could see the Dread suit getting a purple alt based on the game's Gravity suit, or a green one based on the Varia suit from Fusion, while the standard Varia suit could have a bluish-violet palette based on the Gravity suit in Metroid Prime, the dark brown and solid white palettes of the dark and light suits from Prime 2, stuff like that. It's all about getting the right balance of colors with each costume. Samus could also borrow from other major characters in her series. Maybe her Dark Samus palette could return if the Echo Fighters get trimmed back next game, or maybe colors based on Ravenbeak and or Sylex if they don't end up on the roster themselves. She's got a new look, so now let's go over Samus' stats and other attributes. Some small but significant changes can go a long way. So, Samus has an unconventional fighting style. While she's known for her arsenal of projectiles in her games, her Smash moveset only half emphasizes them, if that makes any sense. While she has tools to zone with, she doesn't rely solely on walling people out, and most of her A-button moves are competent physical attacks, though a lot of them are pretty laggy and punishable if they don't hit. This half-zoner playstyle has gotten her this far, and actually, she has more reason to use it now. Samus has been increasingly hands-on with her abilities in her recent outings, picking up melee counterattacks and having scripted sequences she can trigger in boss fights where she repeatedly shoots the enemy at point blank. While several of her moves are different now, her game plan is more or less the same. Use projectiles and ranged attacks to control some space and limit how opponents can approach her, then use her up-close stuff to outbox them when they have limited means to fight back. For her exact stats, there's a mixed bag of changes here. Her size and weight are about the only things that stayed the same. Samus is canonically pretty tall, and the weight of her suit puts her in a tie for 10th heaviest on the current roster. If anyone above her sits out next game, she'll be in the top 10. Her mobility stats are where things get complicated, because I made a bunch of little changes to reflect her movement in Dread more closely. Samus gained a little speed in both her initial dash and full run, letting her cover distance on the ground easier. Her fall speed also got a small increase. While her jumps are on the floaty side in Dread, they're less so than her jumps in Super Metroid. Her airspeed is slightly worse now, because she's noticeably slower in midair in every 2D Metroid after Super, but she's also gained better air acceleration. This stat determines how well a fighter can control their speed in midair, and giving Samus a lower base and higher cap on hers lets her reposition herself in midair more easily, something truer to her newest games. Some of her ratings on the right side also got tweaked, mainly the offense-based ones. Her damage output is a little lower than before, but her frame data is a little better. This reflects her MO in Samus Returns and Dread more closely. Combat in both games is less about outgunning the enemies and more about capitalizing on openings you notice or create. Her knockout power also took a hit, though not in the can't kill until later sense. This version of Samus may be higher octane, but in exchange she doesn't have as many ways to finish off enemy stocks. Picking up on when to use the finishers she still has could be the difference between getting a kill at 100% or 150%. Now for Samus's moveset. Let's see some of those updates. We begin with her most basic attacks. Samus's jab combo gets a touch-up. It still starts with a straight punch using her offhand, but now she thrusts her arm cannon forward for the second hit, then adds a new third hit by firing a small orange-colored energy blast at point blank. This new jab combo is a little slower to come out than her current one, but unlike her current jab, this one's actually consistent and reliable to use. The last hit has enough knockback growth to kill at the ledge at high percents, but if you have to rely on this to end a stock, you did something wrong. Her forward tilt can stay the way it is. A spinning roundhouse kick that works as a decent footsies tool, though you want to use other moves more often. Here we go. Samus has a brand new up tilt based directly on one of her modern abilities. Swinging her arm cannon upward to stuff out incoming enemies, her melee counter technique is just as good at answering approaches in Smash, especially people jumping in at her, since her arm becomes intangible for a couple frames during the upper parts of the swing. A highly effective anti-air attack, it's way faster than her current up tilt, though a little laggier at the end. This move, above all others, will definitely show up on her moveset next game if it gets retooled in any way. Meanwhile, Samus adapts her melee counter for a new down tilt, sweeping her arm cannon in an arc that crosses the ground. It has a trajectory similar to Robin's down tilt with more oomph to it. While it doesn't kill as early as her current down tilt, and it's slightly slower, it's way less vulnerable at the end. And the hit itself spikes grounded opponents just like Peach's down tilt, setting up combo opportunities at low and mid percents. Samus's dash attack is another no-brainer, the alternate running version of her melee counter that she picked up in Dread. It's decently strong and hits in a wider arc than her current football tackle dash attack, but it's not active for as long and it doesn't cross through shields as easily. Knockout potential is roughly the same. Alright, that's a good start. Now how about her smash attacks? Samus's current set was made up for Smash 64, and I think we can do something closer to her source material for her forward and up smashes specifically. That's our cue to bring in another recent power-up, the Diffusion Beam. While this new forward smash still has Samus rear back and stick her arm cannon forward instead of a generic explosion, she unleashes an area of effect blast at close range. Compared to the original, this one's got a huge hitbox, with a sweet spot in the middle, a sour spot on the perimeter, and even a late hit that lasts a couple frames after the main one. But it's also significantly slower to come out, and you can't angle it up or down anymore. For her new up smash, Samus takes her diffusion beam and aims it above her instead. This version carries similar properties, a large explosion with sweet and sour spots and a late hit. This one's slightly faster yet smaller than the new forward smash, and compared to her old up smash, it covers a larger area and kills earlier, but is less active and slower to come out. Her down smash, I left as is. This spinning leg sweep is useful in a pinch, especially at higher percents where its quick front hit and low knockback angle can go to work. Now for Samus's air game, and this is where things get wild. Because her neutral air, surprised, Samus ditches her spinning kick entirely and repurposes the screw attack power-up as a multi-hit neutral air that covers her body. Useful as a damage racker, a get off me move or out of shield punish since it's out on frame 5, and even works as a combo extender at low percents, though it does take longer to finish than her current neutral air, and its lack of range makes it lose to swords or other disjoints. Samus pulls another move from Dread for her forward air. When airborne, her melee counter has a new animation with different hitbox placement. We can repurpose it for a long swing of her arm cannon that starts around the 430 position and ends almost directly above her. With more active frames than most of her revamped moves, it's ideal for covering space in front of her and catching people jumping in. And it's not as massive of a commitment as her current forward air, but it's also not quite as active as the current version, nor is it as strong or as big hitbox-wise, which would also make it less infuriating to deal with online. I kept her current back air, a powerful kick behind Samus that acts as one of her best kill options when she gets openings for it, which may be more frequent with these revamps. Her up air also stayed the same. The multi-hit screwdriver-like motion is useful for comboing out of moves that sent people too far for her neutral air to reach. Actually, she could combo into it from her neutral air at very low percents. Lastly, Samus has replaced her old bludgeoning down air for something with more firepower. Now she aims her arm cannon straight down and looses a blast of orange energy like at the end of her new jab combo. It works kinda like Rob's and Ivysaur's down airs, including popping her up a little during the actual attack. Compared to theirs, her version is smaller, only active for a couple frames like Ivysaur's, has more startup than Ivysaur's but less than Rob's, and has less end lag than both. Samus's grab game also has a few changes, but it's still based around the same thing. The grapple beam is too much of a staple not to include, though with some changes to its animation to make the beam more taut and less like a limp noodle when it misses, reflecting how it's been depicted recently. Samus can still use it in the air to create a hitbox, though it's less active than the original and not as useful of a wall. Her pummel also got a rework, swapping out the awkward chop for having her channel a jolt of electricity through the beam to zap her opponent. It's loosely based on the grapple voltage power-up from Prime 3, dealing damage here instead of siphoning health away. Samus got a couple changes to her throws. Her forward and up throws remain the same, though the latter uses the orange energy blast now instead of a generic explosion, and they keep the same roles as stage control and high percent kills respectively. But her back throw now has her yank the opponent backward, mimicking the motion she does in Dread when pulling objects the grapple beam is latched onto. And her new down throw has her slam the enemy onto the ground and fire 3 shots from her arm cannon at point blank. The 4 total hits deal a little more damage than her current down throw, and it even works as a combo starter at lower percents. Finally, Samus's taunts have stayed mostly the same, but with the option to make some minor changes here and there. For example, the taunt where she looks back and forth while pointing her arm cannon around could become faster and more alert looking, as if she's scanning her surroundings for potential threats she doesn't already know about. Or if she gets new voice work, maybe her salute taunt could be replaced by one where she places her hand to the side of her helmet as if activating her scan visor and says, "Target acquired," or something else that sounds cool-headed and professional. Alright, let's round out this moveset with a set of specials that takes what Samus could do before and raises the bar even further. Her current neutral special is Smash's archetypical chargeable projectile, but the source material is split further and further from it over time. What if we could do something about that and make it more unique than it was before? Now with its proper name, the Charge Beam power-up is what allows Samus to charge her arm cannon in her games. Since she uses the same button to shoot and charge, we can do something interesting. Our version has Samus plant her feet and begin charging her arm cannon like usual, this time correctly colored bright orange like the default power beam actually is, and with some key differences. Press a button before it's fully charged, and Samus fires the shot immediately instead of storing the charge, but she can follow it with up to 2 more shots at minimum charge, and those can be aimed diagonally up or down to an extent, mimicking her free aim ability. Let the beam charge all the way, and you can store it for later like usual. The charged shot is weaker than the current one, but its short stun on hit is intact, maintaining its use as a combo starter and even making it better at it in some ways. And remember how I mentioned Samus has an alternate jump animation when she has enough speed? If you perform one of these spin jumps while a charge beam is prepped, the jump gains a hitbox as the energy from the beam circles Samus during her spin. Her actual jump becomes an attack that itself can confirm into some other moves. The charge beam trades the sheer power of its predecessor for more utility and strategic potential. The move on its own may not kill until later now, but it has greater synergy with the rest of Samus's kit at creating option coverage, combo routes, and kill confirms. She didn't become the galaxy's greatest bounty hunter without knowing how to use her weapons to their fullest. The shots are also longer and more elliptical in shape instead of being perfect circles, which would change the hitbox shapes. Plan accordingly. For her side special, I left this one alone. Missiles are still a staple of her arsenal, and they play an important role in Smash as her most straightforward zoning tool. A tilt input shoots a regular missile with slower movement and minor homing ability, while a Smash input gives her a stronger, faster super missile that goes in a straight line. Maybe they could trim a few frames of end lag off it to make them less committal to use like Meat Gunner's missiles? Alright, that one might have been the same, but we can't use her old up special because Screw Attack is her neutral air now. Fortunately, we got something good to replace it. The Shine Spark is an advanced technique tied to the Speed Booster power-up ever since Super Metroid. While its existence was originally a secret, Shine Sparking is so well known now that the Speed Booster tutorial in Dread goes out of its way to talk about it. On use, Samus hovers in place, builds up a massive amount of energy, then rockets straight forward at high speed, dealing heavy damage to anyone in her way. This thing gets some distance, think Fox's recovery but further, and its velocity and hitbox make it very difficult to intercept. However, it takes about half a second to get going. Samus is a sitting duck until then, and just like in her games, you can only aim it in 8 directions, limiting your potential angles. The Shine Spark trades her previous recovery move with one that goes further and can travel more than just straight up, but has its own downsides in the form of higher commitment and much greater startup. Goes without saying that you can't use this thing out of shield. Though if things get dicey off stage and you're worried about not getting a cardinal or diagonal angle to Shine Spark in, you do still have the grapple beam's tether as an alternative, along with one other option. Which brings us to Samus's down special, and just like with her neutral special, we're taking the old one and adding to it. Does the Morph Ball need any introduction at this point? Samus's most iconic ability has been around since the beginning, and while her current moveset only uses it for certain animations, we can work it into her moveset more overtly. For our version, pressing down and B has Samus go into her Morph Ball form on the spot. While in this form, she can freely move and jump, and since she's only half her usual size like this, it makes her that much harder to hit. The old bombs are still here too. Press A or B while in Morph Ball form to place one on the spot, with a new model based on the ones in Dread, and it blows up shortly after, dealing minor damage to enemies and giving Samus herself a small boost into the air. Press up or a shield button at any point to exit the Morph Ball, or you come out of it automatically if you get hit by an attack. This version takes the current down special and gives it extra utility. It seems like a recurring theme with Samus' specials here. While you can't surprise people with sudden bomb drops now that you have to morph first, having access to this form for more than just a second at a time gives Samus a new tool for evading juggle attempts and sneaking under high attacks in neutral situations. Though keep in mind that this version of the Morph Ball is bigger than it's been depicted in Smash so far, and just like in Dread, Samus is somewhat slower in this form than she is normally. But how do we end this with a bang? Samus' final smash needs to be something big. So it's fortunate that Dread gave us something perfect to use. The Omega Cannon is a temporary upgrade Samus gains several times using the energy of a destroyed central unit. Its sheer firepower is the only thing capable of damaging an enemy, as long as you can stand your ground for long enough. That's less of a problem here though, as Samus substitutes a Smash Ball as an energy source and unlocks the Omega Cannon then and there. Aiming straight ahead, she lets loose with the rapid-fire Omega Stream, overwhelming anyone in the way with a rapid string of hits that locks them in place. She can aim up or down slightly during this. Then her arm cannon's energy reaches its peak. She charges for just a moment, then unleashes an immensely powerful charged shot that blows through anyone in its path. Sure, it may just be a fancier version of her current Final Smash in practice, but it's based on an actual power-up now, and damn if it ain't fun to watch. And there we have it. A new, up-to-date take on Samus that uses more of the abilities she's gained in the past 2 decades and makes some key changes to how she fights while still leaving her overall playstyle intact. She's still an unconventional zoner hybrid who relies on physical attacks as much as projectiles, but improved movement and more confirms give her kit more fluidity and a greater emphasis on set play over keep away. Hopefully this is truer to her modern renditions and more fun to play as, though I guess any actual Samus mains watching should be the judge of that. How'd I do with this? I'm considering making this a full side series, remaking older concepts that haven't aged well or could use a touch-up in general. I can tap into more Smash movesets, but I'm open to topics like characters from other fighting games, story beats of RPGs with iffy storylines, and other stuff like that. Tell me what you'd want to see get a second chance, and maybe I'll remake that in the future. Special thanks for this video goes to these people here. Big shout out to my patrons for their continued support. And if you're on the fence about joining them, remember that my patrons get new rewards now, like helping choose the subjects of my series Challenger Approaching. So, for now, see you next mission.